From Tema, listening from Osaikron, Jojo Kobna. Jojo's got my picture on his DP. Extra shout out for Jojo Kobna. You see now? Jojo, I see you and I see my DP on your Facebook, on your WhatsApp. Baima yao yo in Kwashiman. Levi Kosa, the catalyst. Efiayeb, good evening. Isaac in Adeso. Quite a heavy roll call it. And Butler listening in Adenta. Butler, good evening. Mami Araba somewhere in Tema Community 4. Mrs. Maria Japan, you tune in. Happy belated birthday to your twins, Penyin and Kakra. Charlene Penyin and Shaman Kakra in Japan. Wonderful. 16. Happy sweet 16. Nana Japan with Trinkwa. Akusikayo and Spintex, Mustafa from Staff Creation Ghana inside Fadama. Thank you for joining. Well, I guess this is it. Until the lions have their own historians, the tales of hunting would always glorify the hunter. And you know, I'll say that again. Folks, I said until the lions have their own historians, the tales of hunting would always glorify the hunter. Hello and welcome to the most opinionated hour on radio and the nation's biggest storytelling hour. I am Ansah Kwao, the fourth chief of the famous little republic of Akwemu, Edumasa, and I call this show That My Opinion, our Monday evening ritual that we perform. After the bulletin at 7, we meet here to perform this all-important ritual, a ritual meant to teach us to make the best of what we have as Ghanaians, and also to remind us that the world is not waiting for us. The world is not waiting for us. Welcome again, and let me remind you that we are on Facebook Live. Go to the Joy FM page so you can join us. That's my opinion. And our topic today, folks, how we understood democracy. How we understood democracy. Now today I'm challenging our system of governance because this democracy definitely can be for us. So I'm treading on dangerous water here. This democracy can be for us. Now, kindly listen carefully as I try to prove the experts wrong, even though I am no expert in governance. So I'm definitely on skating on thin ice here. I know you will have a lot to say on this, and we will maybe be very divided, those for and those against, but that's the beauty of the show. So for us, we do it agreeably. Governance. Folks, governance is very fluid, a fluid system. If I may borrow the wisdom of Sheikh Bagaya, my good friend Sheikh Bagaya, if I may borrow his wisdom, even though he does his analogy in religion, let me do the same analogy but use governance instead of religion. So governance is like clear water flowing through its path. However, when it gets to a land where the soil is red, the water changes color to reddish. When it gets to a path with green vegetation, it will react the same. So when the people from the reddish looking water area say that all water must look reddish without considering the characteristics of other water beds, it can become problematic. This has been the issue the world over with this animal called democracy, where a system that works perfectly well in one country totally collapses another country. But in Africa and here in Ghana, I think our issues are more complex and peculiar. Folks, it is practically impossible to have a governance system that does not reflect one's culture, or a governance system that does not recognize the traditions of its own people. It is practically impossible to have a governance system that does not reflect one's culture, or a governance system that does not recognize the traditions of its own people. That has been one of our major battles. A Western-style democracy planted here in Ghana. Three things which the protagonists of democracy say: that democracy must have legal equity, political freedom, rule of law. The big question then is, can these principles only be achieved on a borrowed style of governance? It's the big question. Ghana, our happy home, is now one of the bastions of democracy, and we pride ourselves with that accolade. The international world sees us as their baby. Name it: media freedom, freedom to vote, freedom to discuss politics openly. Indeed, our problem, folks, is too much freedom. We have changed governments many times since the 90s and still going. So, well done, Ghana, pat on the back. But folks, I would rather say we have developed, instead of a democracy, a votocracy. Because for democracy to thrive, it must adapt our culture. For democracy to work, the people should understand the type of governance they have chosen. Because if it is a governance for the people, which is alien to the very people it is meant to help, then we have a challenge. If the type of governance we have chosen to help us is alien to us to the extent that we can't even understand the intricacies of it, then, folks, we have a challenge. After voting, we give power to a president. He has the power to hire nearly 9,000 persons and fire them at will without consulting us or explaining to us why he hired or fired them. And for the next 4 years, he has imperial powers. And the very people who democracy is meant for are marginalized. Justice is out of their reach, but they are given too much freedom. Folks, they are given too much freedom to the peril of their own lives. To me, if you ask me, it's like you're being bribed with freedom. Local government and assemblies which would have bridged the gap between citizens and government is not taken serious. From our attitude in participation, and the persons running for local office tells you that we have no clue. So yes, on paper, I cannot argue that we don't have a democracy. But in reality, folks, in reality, standing back and getting a holistic view, the story is different. Now, governance experts say that this is the best there is. No government is perfect. That I agree. No governance is perfect. That I agree. But this Western multi-party democracy is the best for us. They say this is the best for us. But I am looking at it as a votocracy. The best we have been able to manage out of this borrowed system. There's a woman I know, and I've told this story several times, who doesn't know the surname of her own husband, yet queues up to vote. Freedom to participate. Folks, we had a system. We had a system which worked well and continues to. Even though I agree we might not be able to replicate it fully, dito, carbon copy on a national level, the principles of it directly affect us, taking into account who we are rather than what we are supposed to be. So before the adoption of foreign governance, we had our own democracy, which has outlived most governing systems in the world today. Folks, we have our own system of governance, which has outlived most systems in the world today, and the system of traditional rule and chieftaincy. Now, I will try and explain, because from afar it looks very chaotic. However, there are strict rules and structures. Now, to begin, here, listen carefully, since, we are not very abreast with traditions and cultures. This is quite technical. I'm trying to summarize it and simplify it as much as possible. Find the contemporary examples to match so that we get the picture. Folks, in our system, right, there is an electoral college, just like the EC, headed by the Queen Mother. So, before women were allowed suffrage in the Western world, here in Ghana, or here before it became Ghana, a woman was the head of the electoral college, and she had the highest mandate to nominate a candidate. Before all this girl power thing came, it was a woman who would head the electoral college, i.e. the Queen Mother, and she had the highest mandate to nominate a candidate. In technical terms and some of the back clauses, the only time you can bypass the Queen Mother is if she brings 3 candidates and you have a genuine reason why those 3 candidates are not good. Then you can go behind the Queen Mother's authority, and then you can go and bring somebody even still to her for her to accept it. So she will nominate a candidate to be given to the members of the electoral college. They are the heads of the family, called Abusuapanyin. So he's the head of the family but not head of the town. So in contemporary terms, it's like a party chairman, head of the party but not head of state. Then you have Jasi Hene. As for Jasi, I'm sure they're very popular because Jasi is a very, very strong stakeholder within the traditional center. Now, he will be like Minister for Lands and Fixed State Assets. He's in charge for lands and fixed state assets. At the demise of the king, he takes control of all state assets to be given to a new king after swearing in. He literally takes account of everything he took in, and then when the king, chief or king comes, he will account and then give everything to him, including the palace. The palace is under the ownership of the Jasi Hene. You have Ankobia, who is head of security. He does due diligence on the new candidate before he's accepted. You have Adonting, head of Reki. In everything, he moves before the king, and whether through war or administrative protocol, he would always be ahead. You have Chedom. He's got the back of the king. He's the head of the Jasi division. The Jasi division are like the presidential staffers. They run the office of the chief. They can decide whether the chief comes to your funeral or not. They can decide whether the chief hears your case or not. They literally manage the man or the woman who's heading the big stool. You have Sana Hene, in charge of state finance and liquid assets. All assets that are not fixed and are liquid is in charge. Sana handles all that. Folks, we have Mankrado, or some of you will call him Kronti Hene. Now that's an interesting one, folks. He is the leader of the opposition and also the vice president. Can you imagine? So in traditional governance, Haruna Idrisu will be Ghana's Mankrado. He will also have to agree to the candidature of the new king. He will have to agree whether the Nadu comes to be president or not. Indeed, he will do the swearing-in ceremony. Now, this role can change in certain areas. However, one thing is certain across. The second in command can never be the chief in command. So the vice president can never ever be the president, but he's always the vice president. He's the head of the opposition, and he can literally form a shadow government to check the chief. These things were there. These things were there. Now, Mantihine is another very unique one. Not a kingmaker, but when all is said and done, he will bring the youth to come and help in the ceremony. He is the minister for youth, sports, labor, sanitation. So he's some sort of like a town mayor. Some call him Abontindong Hene. I'm sure you heard Abontindong Hene or Mbranti Hene. Now he works for the Mankrado directly and not the king. Look, our forefathers had some deep thoughts, man. This very important chief, sensitive chief who controls the youth, works for the Mankrado and not the king. So if he has to be changed, the king has no right. The opposition leader who controls him has the right to kick him out. Can you imagine the minister who controls the youth, who you need to govern, is under the opposition leader, who is your number 2 in command? So folks, it tells you that from day one, you better learn human relationships. So from afar, it looks as if the king is high and mighty and doing whatever. No. He's very tactical in managing his people. So you better learn how to relate. The Queen Mother's nomination will have to be seconded by some elderly women in the family, which is always very important, depending on the structure of the kingship or the size of the kingship and responsibility. Sometimes chiefs from different towns will have to be part of the validation to make you a king or chief. Folks, if all goes well, you'll be locked away and schooled with your new role. I don't want to go into that. That's not what I'm talking about. You'll be locked away and you'll be taught the ins and outs of your new role. Now, I'll say there's wisdom in ancestry, and I keep saying this. Check this. Now, look at how our forefathers did as a final check. Now, it's said that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So how would you check this? How would you check this phenomenon? Now, bear in mind that here I am, for example, in Edumasa, a land given to my great ancestors for one reason or the other. So it's their property. But it's big enough to accommodate other people. So they do so. Now, this is mainly the story for many towns. Some people, original inhabitants, go onto the land and it's theirs, and then they bring in other people because, there's room for 2 of us or there's room for 10 of us. The tendency for power to get to your head is very high. In Cree, they call Oshe is border. Oshe is border. Odeshe means the owner of the border. Odeshe, the owner of the border. How do we tame such a person? An Odeshe, an owner of a border on his own land, from ruling arbitrarily? How do you tame an owner of a land who is now the chief of the same land, who has invited people to come and live on the land? How do you tame such a person so he doesn't do as he wants and as he pleases? Can never happen today. But check what they did. They gave all authority of the land to the king. All authority, 100%. Then broke the power up into pieces and gave it to all the sub-chiefs. The sub-chiefs, however, have no authority. The chief has no power. At every given time, they must work together for power and authority to work. And even gave the second highest power to a non-family member. The man Kratos, never a family member, can never ascend to become a chief. And he's second in command and the vice president. He has to be privy to all deals to make it valid. Even though he does not sign or go into agreement on behalf of the town, he has to be in the know. All installations of sub-chiefs are done by him. Every visitor that comes to the town should go to him first before he brings him to the king, via Ankobia, who's head of security, to make sure if this person is a threat or not a threat. Back then, folks, there was Ankobia. Let me pause here and just give you brief about the Ankobia. Now, Ankobia is very peculiar. He's the only chief who, when being installed, is not carried shoulder high. He walks. And from the day he swears in, he owes allegiance to no one, including the chief. Owes allegiance to no one. He can come and go as he pleases. Now, they gave him this unique position because he's head of security. And he could come and say, look, Nana, watch out for your son Abeku. He's a bit cunning. And then you should be sure, because he's not a bootlicker. You can't disturb him, you can't touch him, so that information he's giving will have some credibility. They had thought about all those things. Folks, before we think, as I say, they had thought. I mean, what more transparency can beat this? Imagine all these deals coming through, COVID funds, IMF funds, everything goes through Haruna Idris's office. He checks it, makes sure everything is fine, and then hands it over to the president. Yet, I think it's kosher, let's work with it. Rather than you hear a press conference, I don't know about it, we were bulldozed into it, we went here. No, everything comes from your office to me. All ambassadors, presidents who come to Ghana will go to his office and tell him why it is we have come to Ghana. We want to come and invest in oil, we want to come and invest in bauxite, and then he will usher them to the president and say, I have these people, this is what they intend to do. And even before the president can say yes or no, he will still have to call Haruna and say, Haruna, what do you think? Do we get these people in or do we kick them out? Everything is done in consultation. How much more democracy did we need? I mean, what more transparency can beat this? Folks, from afar, it looks like some authoritarian, chaotic mess, historic, colonial, just entombed. But when you're close and you realize how structured it is and how every office is autonomous, I can't hire and fire at will. You can't even ask the drummer to stop drumming. You can only plead with him. That's his office. He will stop when he's done. And even if he feels like drumming a bit more, you have to wait. You are the king, so what? He is the drummer. He has that his office. And when he's when he's done, he's done. You see, that's the reality. That's the reality once you get close. So to me, that's our democracy. Power is checked and controlled. The people who are being governed understand the system in and out, and the system understands them. So every 6 weeks, there's a town hall meeting where they will all meet, and town folks meet the chief and discuss way forward. Before the Western calendar, 6 weeks was a month, and the town hall meeting was once a month, which is every 6 weeks, and literally just discuss the way forward for the town, and all issues are thrashed out then. Folks, you may know it as Akwesidai, which is still in practice today. Now, before I go to the phones, folks, these are how sub-chiefs or ministers are appointed. There's always an appointing family. So if I want Sana Hene, after consultation, I will approach the Irinchi family. They will go through their family and find a suitable candidate who will go through vetting, and if we are satisfied, he's installed. So even if I'm no more the chief, whoever becomes after me will be able to work with Sana, because it's not as if I went and picked my hand, my cronies, come and work with me. See, that's why chiefs are able to work across different leaders. Now, these are the principles that our democracy needs. reduce drastically the powers of the president, give him a much longer term to serve so as to plan, and stop the division and winner takes all, where people literally borrow money to run campaigns. There should be a system which makes us build together, not where at every given time there's one half of the nation pulling the other half down so they get their turn. Now, our ancestral ideology of democracy was the Siamese crocodile, a crocodile with two heads and one stomach. Why should they fight? If I eat, you are full. If you eat, I am full. But with this system now that the NPP is eating, the NDC is hungry. Until they get their turn, absolutely nothing will please them. And then one day the tables will turn around and the NPP too will say, no, unless we come back, we're also never going to be pleased with what you do. And it's just going back and forth, because anytime one head is eating, the other is hungry. Again, I'm not saying we should carbon copy our traditional style governance. But if the principles is right, can we go back and look at it and think along it? Because what we are doing, this democracy, I don't believe it's for us. I don't believe that it's working for us. It looks good on paper, fine in pleasing the international bodies, but on the ground, it's 0302-216-541. 0302-216-541. Well, Bless is my first caller. Good evening, Bless.
Good evening, Nana.
Let me hear you.
I'm home, Meto. What's the meaning of that?
It's a fancy proverb which says truth is like a bottle cork. No matter how much you submerge it, one day it will still float.
Oh, okay. Thanks so much. And how do you choose your topic today? I was thinking along the same line. You know, last week you talked about how we borrowed these marriage ceremonies wholeheartedly without looking at our own.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about how we also took this democracy to this country without thinking about how we can infuse our traditional values into it. And I was pleasantly surprised when you talked about along the same line tonight. In fact, you've been giving thought-provoking topics to us, and it's worth listening to. But I think our democracy is not working, and we need to look at it again. Today you talked about reducing the powers of the president, and I agree with you. We need to do that. Take a look at the democracy we are practicing today and see how best we can infuse. I mean, what you gave to, I didn't know a lot. The how they call it, Mankados, in Mantihini, and the roles that they play. Is very thought. How do you call it? How do I speak the English now? I've learned a lot tonight, and I thank you. And I think we should go back to the drawing board and infuse our traditional values into our democracy, because nowadays the banter is too much and nothing is being done.
Thank you very much. Ishmael is on the line. Good evening, Ishmael.
Good evening, sir. God bless you so much for your message.
God bless you too.
Yeah, I think you are really educating us. could you please talk on the office of the Kontihene for us, please?
The Kontihene.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, the Kontihene. Maybe I have to do a whole show on the Kontihene. Kontihene is literally the second in charge of the land.
Oh, okay.
He's the second in charge. He can never be the chief. So he's sort of like from an opposing family. But, I use opposing advisedly, because he's not opposed as to he wants the chief's downfall, because it's not beneficial to him. So he's in there to basically help to make it, make it better. And everything, he's like, when a visitor goes to town, if you go to any town today and you've never been there before, you ask to see the Kontihene, and then you tell him your mission. Before, if you have to see the chief, you go and see the chief. If you're an investor, whatever it is. So it brought about transparency. The chief couldn't just sit in his palace and just misbehave. Everything that came to the chief had come from the Kontihene's office.
Okay. What about the Mankrado?
No, it's the same. It's just people have different names for it. Yeah, Omankrado means he's holding the padlock to the land. Omankrado, Omankrado sort of. And then Kronti is like the head of the town.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned the Jase. Could you repeat what you said again?
Jase is minister in charge of fixed all state assets and fixed assets. So even the palace belongs to Jase. The drums in the palace belongs to Jase. I mean, they not belong as such, but he is in charge of even the drums that are in the palace. So every asset that are fixed is under the control of Jase. So as a chief, when Jase comes, like in a playful manner, if you run up and like, oh, landlord, your landlord has come.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's the Jase. And Jase, so basically, at the demise of the king, Jase would take stock of everything, lands, how many umbrellas there were there, everything. And then when the new chief comes, he will hand it over to him. So Jase is a very integral part of the chieftaincy system. Simon is on the line, but I think the line dropped. Hello, Simon.
Oh, hello. Yes. So, Nana, this is a great lesson and a great day, really. I've never really known of any of these things. But where are we going to start from? Because you said we need to start a conversation. Where are we going to start from?
It's a difficult one. You see, we must decide that we are going to plant trees out of which its fruit and shade we will not benefit. That's the first thing. As a people, we should decide that from now onwards, whatever it is we are doing, it won't be for our benefit, but for the future generations. Once we are able to do that sacrifice, I'm sure we'll come round on the table. But if we think that we have to plant fruit and then we must sit under its shade and pluck its fruits and eat, then it will be difficult.
Yes, I get your point, Nana. And when you say we, what do you mean? Do you mean as individuals, as families, or do you mean the government? Where are we going to start from? That's what I want to know. Because the people, I believe the people that must be listening to you are not listening to you. That's my bet.
Yeah, they won't want to listen. Well, when I say we, I mean generation. But obviously, the honors will lie on the political figureheads today. They will have the bigger responsibility, even though we are all part of it. But they should sit down. I mean, can you imagine if
I get your point.
If JM was the Mankrado of Ghana.
I get your point.
He gets all the deals, goes through it, and says, "No, Nana, this deal is not right for us." Or yes, Nana, go ahead.
Yeah, and I've always believed, yes, and I agree with you. I have always believed that we are not ready for democracy yet. We are not ready, Nana. All right, thank you so much. But we need to find a way to get this conversation onto a bigger platform, probably.
Oh, thank you very much. But Derek is on the line. Hello, Derek.
Yes, sir. I greet you, sir.
I greet you back.
And I thank you so very much today for this great education. I've been waiting for this day. And I thank my stars I'm alive to just listen to you. Sir, I keep saying until we infuse the tradition or the traditional leadership into our governance system, Ghana will be marking time. Because this is not meant for us. And it's never going to help us. We have to sit down and do it strong and once. I thank you so very much. May God bless you.
I thank you too. Akla is in Tema. Irene Okanse, also you are in Tema. Nana, thanks for the education. I've learned a lot today, and I always do. God bless you, Nana. God bless you too, guys. But Frank is on the line. Hello, Frank.
Hello, Nana. Good evening.
Good evening.
Nana, God bless you so much for the work you're doing.
Thank you.
I want to make some quick clarification. What's the difference between Ansah Kwao and Odikro?
Okay, Odikro is will be like a DCE. Okay. Ansah Kwao is vice president. Odikro is a DCE. So let's say, where do you live, please?
Come again.
Where do you live, Frank?
Tema.
Tema, good. So let's say you were the chief of Tema, and you lived in, let's say, Community 1, and you have lands in Community 25. So you will make me the Odikro of Community 25. So I watch Community 25 so people don't encroach. And even if people were farming, they pay their taxes to you. So my role is just to watch Community 5 for you. So that's Odikro.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Joel is on the line. Hello, Joel.
Hi, Nana. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good. I have been pondering over this issue for quite some time, and I am just trying to find out which country in this world has actually become developed using the governance system that we are practicing now.
Not one.
It looks as if democracy is a governance system developed for already developed countries, because I have no wind of any third world country that has actually come out of its state by practicing this form of governance, which we call democracy today.
Joel, I side with you. I've asked a few people the same question, and nobody's been able to give me any country that, oh yeah, country A or country B, they broke themselves up into many, many parties, and then all of a sudden they succeeded. So maybe it will be the text case. But Abu is on the line. Hello, Abu.
Hello, Nana. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this topic. You've really opened our minds. But to remind people, this is the biggest platform. You see, I remember some time ago, my first time speaking to Danadazi, I told him that we've failed. We have to accept the fact that we have failed. So when we failed, we have to now go back and instill that sense into the younger ones coming. It's like we are walking and we meet a Y junction. Instead of us to take the right, we use the left. So we have to come back, as they say, Sankofa and Yaboni. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much too. We can create a scholarship for a PhD student or students and postdoc studies into some of these areas if indeed we need to start from somewhere. Cobra from North Kaneshi. Good evening. Ajimai is on the line. Hello, Ajimai.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
And thank God for keeping you.
Thank you too.
And today your topic is deep, and I will disagree and maybe agreeably with you.
Sure.
I think you giving 30 minutes talk time for us to express our view is enough, but the 30 minutes for you to explain things for a lot of people to understand, I think is small. It is not enough. You need 2 hours for this your show. Yeah, let me come to my point. And the issue is, you say you don't need this democracy, but I'll also tell you that the power vested in the chiefs, I mean, we should have a look at it. And the president has the legislative powers to do some certain things, but at the same time, when the president go wayward, there are some laws that can impeach him. But with the chiefs, because they are the custodians, they have the power. Though they have elders around him, sometimes whatever he says is final. Don't we have any law that binds them that a chief cannot sell lands to a certain level? Because he said, I'm the head, I'm the chief, I can come and buy the land and whatever. Whether it is going to benefit the community or not, he will just sell the lands. And no one speaks. But they will cry for the government to listen to them. But the chief saying that, I am the Odikro, I have the power over the lands, I will sell them. So don't, with the original House of Chiefs, we have National House of Chiefs. Can they make a law to bind the chiefs not to be selling the lands just like that? Or also to abuse the law traditionally?
I agree with you, even though no system is perfect and there are loopholes. But you see, it is our generation, these psyche chiefs who sell lands. The chiefs before us always leads lands. That's why they say, Asasi Yedidiso Yenton. It's only us who became greedy. But if you go into the books as a chief, you can only lease land so that there is only the interest in the land that you give out, but not the land. But then, we went to school, became all graduate chiefs, and decided selling. But the chiefs before us, and everything was for the unborn, the living, and the dead. It's only today that everything is for me. Unborn can go to hell. The dead is already in hell. But yeah, I agree with you. No system is perfect. But I'm just looking at the principles. Apia is there. Hello, Apia.
Hello, Nana. Good evening.
Good evening.
Oh, great getting through to you. I'm always by my radio on Monday at this time.
I'm grateful.
Nana, I'm one of the people that believe that the kind of politics we are practicing today for Ghana and for that matter Africa is not what it's supposed to be. I'm one of those people, but I'm not going to go there. Now, number two, what I want to find out is this. All these definitions of our royal seats or rules of our royal seats, were they defined by our great-grandfathers who were largely illiterate? Were they the people that put all these structures together? As in all the roles and responsibilities together.
Yep.
Great. So those largely illiterate people were able to define all these. And with our degrees, we prefer this kind of multi-party democracy, where there's no elderly, anybody could talk to anybody anyhow, politics of insults, etc. Our first, second, third, and fourth degrees, this is what we chose. And our largely illiterate grandfathers and grandmothers, they define everything you have just said, Nana. Thank you very much. God bless you.
God bless you too, my brother. Wow, that was a clear and concise explanation of how our traditional governance works. It's a pity we did not get a chance to improve on it. Colonial powers destroyed and used our own chieftaincy system to divide and rule. Post-independence, we, the people, should have done a sankofa and gone back to create a governance system based on best practices of our traditional systems. The traditional governance model to consider could encompass the best practices in all different models of traditional governance from across Ghana. Let's begin the study. And Leonard is on the line. Hello, Leonard.
Hello, Nana. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes. I listened carefully to all that you said, and it looks so beautiful. But we'll have issues. You know why?
Tell me.
Because the people you are saying should be listening. That is the politicians. They saw how the Europeans or the colonial people enjoyed. And when they left and handed power over to us, they decided to follow suit. If they follow what our traditional elders left behind for us, they will not be enjoying what they are enjoying now. So you see, to them, it will be to their disadvantage. They want to continue living like the way we treated the white men. Give them a fine bungalow, give them a fine car, pay them well so that they can live well, so that they can have control over us. They want to enjoy all that. It's not as if they don't know what our elders left behind for us. They know. That is why they themselves have also decided to corrupt the chieftaincy tradition. That is why you have chiefs who believe in what you have just said, but because they are in league with the politicians, they would rule over their people like the politicians, and no matter what the Odikro or whatever says, they would not listen, particularly when they are a bit rich. When a chief is very rich, he controls the whole town. So I don't know how this is going to be feasible in this our time, because they have tasted how sweet it is. It will be difficult for us to bring them back to what our elders left.
It will definitely be difficult. I'm clearly not saying that this is like a perfect system, but I'm just saying that I think if we just looked at the principles and tried to achieve those principles, because bear in mind that even the people understand that side of governance. Yet, we understand it. One day I'll tell you a story. It was a time to choose an MP, and at the same time we needed a Mrantehene in the same room. They were vetting. If you point this guy, they say no, he's lazy. This guy is temperamental. This guy is this. This guy is that. I mean, they wanted the right candidate for Mrantehene. When it got to the MP and we're all in the same room, some of their concerns were that at the funeral he doesn't even give enough donations. I mean, and I looked at the scrutiny they gave to Mrantehene and the scrutiny they are giving to the MP. The same people in the same room. And I just wish I had recorded it so I play it back. And I'm thinking, that's how they understood the MP. Yeah, Fasha or Baswa Kakrebi or Sumekwaba, but them Mrantehene, no. They needed somebody who could work. Abba is on the line.
Hello.
Good evening, Abba.
Hello, my dear. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, I always listen to you, and I'm listening to you now.
Great.
The point is that our chiefs, they come from particular families. It's not democratic. It's particular families. So if we were to use that kind of system to rule us, who are going to select those people to rule us?
Well, that's why I said we can't carbon copy. The chief, fortunately or unfortunately, comes from where he got his own land and invited people. But Ghana is different. But I'm just talking about the principles and how it is that they have checked the chief, clipped his wings. Can we look at that on a bigger scale? But obviously we can't carbon copy. I'm looking at the principles of transparency, of power sharing.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you very much. And I perfectly agree with the caller who was in the view that the people who were supposed to listen to, are not listening to you. So we would keep moving in this back and forth motion. Our constitution must entirely be rewritten to suit this beautiful local order that you are educating us on. Johnny Bosco, Peji in the whole West District. Well, like you said, I had to do a lot of summarizing, trying to just get to the point. But there are so many niggly bits and things. And every time I sit quiet in my palace, I wonder, is it that our forefathers went through something, an experience? Let me tell you the reason why. You see, once upon a time, right, the chief and the Mankradu used to come from the same home. So the president and the vice were from the same home, same family. After all, it was their land. And then what was happening was that sometimes when the chief goes to war, by the time he comes, the Mankradu would have disturbed him and made himself chief. And so when the chief was going to war, he was now panicking as to when he comes back, is he going to be safe? And so to mitigate, they decided that that's it. Mankradu goes to a different family. So even if the chief goes to war and die, you're never going to be the Mankradu. And that was the end of that problem. So all these things have been thought. And here we are. Everybody forms a party. Posters all over the country with all faces. Everybody says, I want to be an MP. Spending monies which they don't have. And here we are. Quick one, you missed out on the most crucial aspect of universal governance system in general, that's spiritual backbone. All the existing civilizations, China, Japan, India, Euro, Americas, etc., have their own spiritual backbones to sustain their governance structure. In Ghana, the traditional settings where our spiritual backbone is, river deities, that's where our spiritual backbones have been bastardized by our colonials as bosoms and demons, and have opposed Christianity and Islam on us as a spiritual backbones. That Saudi Arabia and Britain have two spiritual backbones in their governance system. That's where our failings are becoming. That's where our fallings are becoming. For and all will be forever enslaved and ruled by our colonial masters through the few Miseducated Ghanaian Afropeans. Nana Ano Amehe. In the meantime, in between time, Mr. Brobe is here to give you the news bulletin. Iggy will come and overdrive you while you were thinking, where did we go wrong and how do we get things right? Good evening to the little dancing princess who dances to the sick tune. On here is listening. Good evening, wifey. And thanks to my son, my producer, Abeku Sanko. He's always on the ones and twos. Folks, my name is Nana Ansah Kwao. But let's say happy birthday to Nana Kofi Frimpong. Nana Kofi Frimpong, happy birthday to you. Next Monday, we'll be back to do this all over again. But until then, until the lions have their own historians, their tales will forever glorify the hunter.